What's up, people? It's your boy Jatois. I'm here today actually in Flyout once again. Just before I was going to do a how to build stuff video, I wanted to try out helicopters because I learned after the fact that they took away the propellers because, well, not propellers, but the helicopter blades because they had some issues with them. So I was trying to use propeller blades in different configurations to try to do this as I would in KSP 1, not KSP 2 quite yet, but things did not go as according to plan. Alright, so here was my quad idea. I figured, you know, I could get this going, have 4 propellers going at the same time. It does generate just enough lift to get you off the ground, but I ran into some strange balancing issues, and so, you know, there's no center of lift indicator in the game, so you kind of have to guesstimate where everything is, and this one was just a bit too far off. So, back to the drawing board. So this was the next version here, and once again, a lot of issues, so back to the drawing board again. I was getting closer, and so what I found is I need to flip my blades and make them pushers. That way they're pushing against the ground, and get a little closer. Okay, so this was the next redesign, and more balancing, a few more issues, but getting there. So this design here was the first to go in the proper direction, and you can see here it seems to be working fantastically until suddenly it decides it doesn't want to do that. Now, I should have learned a lesson from this, but I didn't quite understand what was going on until a few additional flights later. And this just ended up in a near death. So here we are trying again, another bit of lessons to be learned from flight. Again, we're going in the proper direction, and I'm trying to figure out why the craft, while it's flying in the proper direction, suddenly bucks up and decides it doesn't want to go that direction anymore. And I was starting to have a feeling that it was because the directions I have put on the propellers, but I was able to save my guy one more time, and then that happened. Okay, so this design here I figured would work. I think I have figured out what's going on. I believe I had figured out what's going on, and I realized I have to kind of feather the controls, because if you don't feather the controls, well, this is exactly what will happen. It'll flip backwards on you, and then you come down for a nice disappearing crash. So I decided to give it one last try, because what I learned during the feathering of the controls with the propeller stats out for the propellers is that you can see the thrust go up as I press S, and those increments allow me to kind of guess how much thrust I need to get off the ground. And so once I did that, I was able to then get off the ground a bit more gracefully than in my previous attempts of the craft just ripping off the ground and then surging forward at a high angle, and this allows me to create a more stabilized flight. So all of these previous attempts were down to this, because I wanted this to be my last go, because I was realistically running out of time because, you know, 2 kids, dinner to cook, things like that. I didn't really have too much to spend on this. So you can see here the craft comes up, it stays at a pretty decent angle to go forward. It still does this rip backwards, but I continued to feather that S key, and that just kind of tap, 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 and that brings it right back up to a stable flight. So this was nice because now we have a controllable craft. It's not the best of options to control a craft like this. I would probably need to find out if having control surfaces would add some more stability versus the weight that it would add in. But hey, it does allow me to fly the craft and try to come in for a nice graceful landing, and stuck the landing And, well, that happened. So, well, if you enjoyed that video, go check out some of the other Flyout videos I've done. There's probably only one other, so it shouldn't take very long. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out of here. A peace.